Guten Abend. Now what I'm about to tell you may scare the hell out of you, but it's true. Now what I'm about to tell you may scare the hell out of you, but I want you to understand that it is important that you gain some perspective. Okay? Do not sugarcoat anything. I can't. The situation is too grave and the stakes are too high. So you may be scared. It may give you goose pimples, may make your blood run cold. But if you look carefully, you yourselves might come to the same conclusion that you see that act of slaying the horses. That act was a ritual of sorts. Oh yes, it was. It was a ritual. It was a test. It was a way of testing conformity. It was a way of testing engagement in ritual acts together. It was a way to see how far that the people that follow the NDC are willing to go. Okay? So they had to test. That is why it was done so swiftly. That is why there was no time for negotiation. If it's done quickly, if it's done swiftly, if it's done without hesitation, guess what? It creates a blind spot in the mind of the NDC followers. They do not get to think. They do not get to engage their moral conscience. The instinct for revenge, the instinct for domination, which is powerful, very powerful instinct, the fundamental instinct for revenge, the fundamental instinct for domination of their opponents, which is what they see the NNP as, was engaged. That instinct is easier to engage because it appeals to survival instincts. So if they gave their followers some sort of time to think, guess what would happen? They will start second guessing the situation. So they could not allow that. Then their moral compass would have probably been engaged. With that time, that lapse in time, maybe their moral compass would have kicked in. And they could not allow that. Not at all. So that is why you saw the swiftness of action. The decision is made. It's over. And then you see there's a sort of sadomasochistic feeling of domination. Once you say the decision is over, it's done. And the timing of this is all perfectly careful because there's a losing of support. There's a waning of togetherness. Okay? The initial euphoria of 2 to 3 years ago has started to fade. So they had to do this ritual to reconsolidate the flock. That is what this is about. And it was beautifully packaged and wrapped in fear and paranoia. The fear of, infection. Infection to all animals and greater. Infection to humans. Fear is extremely powerful. It can get people to do things that under normal circumstances, they will never do it. They had to do something to remind their followers that it's us against them. They have to create a contentious issue to solidify, to harden the bonding of their followers. Because some have started to question what's going on, and they cannot allow that. We saw that before. We saw that before. After all the little initial aid to the PRG revolution started to fade, guess what happened? People, lost interest. Things change. Miss Beverly Steele handled that very well. She spoke about that. Okay? So it started to fade. It was harder to get people to get involved. So that's why they had to become more oppressive. You had to force people to do things. So this is what you're seeing is happening. There's a gradual, more draconian actions being taken to get people to do things. And money, the lack thereof, always causes problems. It is the same thing. I tell you, when you see me drawing parallels to the 7983 period, I keep telling you, it's not an exaggeration at all, by any means. So now you're seeing a little tightening on the money. Guess what? Things are getting rough. It creates mistrust. It creates political crises. Same thing happened in the PRG. When the money dried up, there was an economic crisis, and that economic crisis precipitated a political crisis. So, the money's drying up. Some people got too greedy. Sources are becoming more difficult to milk. That is why you're seeing more and more harsh and draconian methods. It's going to get worse. There's a more need to create some sort of dividing line of us against them. They have to push that. So you're going to see them pushing that much more. There's no changing of this decision. It's over. The decision has already been made. There is a sadomasochistic element to this. It's that feeling of power, that feeling of domination of your ups. And it's also a feeling of, yes, we get to punish the opponents psychologically. For now, we can't touch them physically, but we get to punish, we get to hurt, and in some respects, we get to spite them psychologically. No, you've got to see this for what it is. And that is exactly part of the ritual. So that's why you'll find it strange. There's a sense of euphoria, a feeling of relief, a feeling of victory that stimulates the followers. It's like, yes, we got them. It's like, look at them, we dominated them on this issue. They're hurting. And that gives, in a very, very sick way, a sense of joy, a sense of euphoria, a sense of dominance. Again, it appeals to a sadomasochistic element of these people. Now that is reality. People could sugarcoat, okay? They could sugarcoat it as much as they want, but that is the reality of the situation. And you know how you gauge that that is the actual feeling of reality and emotion behind what was done? Look at the responses on Facebook. Look at the responses on social media. Do you know on social media, people are a little less inhibited, okay? And you will see the vile responses, the euphoric joy experienced by the followers of the NDC. So these people at the upper echelons, they know what they're doing, okay? None of this is an accident. And what is so clear is that you didn't have anyone in the NDC camp saying, oh, well, you know, this was really a bad decision. And even if it was a necessary decision, guess what? It should have been handled differently. No, they're all engaged in the ritual. Once you have that level of conformity, okay? Once you have that level of conformity, it is a dangerous, dangerous thing. No, the upper echelon of the NDC feel a sense of joy, a sense of relief, a sense of empowerment that, look, now we can get our followers to do anything that we tell them to do. Because together we created that bond, that ritualistic bond. Because together we created that ritualistic bond that solidified our connection. This is the power of rituals. And in some respects, they have opened the floodgates for more rituals. See what I'm saying? They have opened the floodgates. They have created an appetite for ritualistic bonding. You know, there's a saying that man touch control him, but symbolism controls man thoughts. Okay? So this was a powerful piece of symbolism that we have absolute authority And there is nothing that can be done about it. That is part of the symbolism. I want you to understand, in 1979, 1980, I had the good opportunity of leaving tongue, as we would say. You had the really great opportunity of leaving tongue, so to speak. And I moved to Grenville, Gladstone Road, Labby, for a little while. Okay? And I could remember in the initial phases of the revolution, there was a sense of euphoria, sense of joy. I mean, there was just something in the air that everybody felt. And I felt it too. And the people around was just a sense of release, a sense of joy. Because they thought this was the best thing that happened to Grenada. No one believed at that time that 3 to 4 years from then, some of the most cataclysmic events would have rocked Grenada. And I want you to understand, all these heavy-handedness that occurred from 79 to 83 didn't start off. It's not like they get up one day and just the whole country was under heavy-handedness. No. It was gradual. Very gradual. Because they did slight things, because they introduced things slowly. And the more they got away with it, and the more there was no resistance to it, not even from within their camp, then it created a monster and a beast that was actually uncontrollable. So I want you to understand, King Solomon says that man really doesn't change under the sun. He doesn't really change. The same instincts that governed men 2,000 years ago still govern men today. The same instincts that governed men 40 years ago still governs men today. So I want you to understand what makes the difference. What makes the difference is the ability to see a lot of things that are happening in real time quickly, via cell phone, via social media. So when some of these oppressive things were being committed during that period, if it happened in the rural north, somebody in the south would not have had a clue of what was taking place. As a matter of fact, somebody in Victoria would not have had a clue. And even if they were told about it, they weren't able to visualize it happening. Whereas today, you have pictures, you have videos, and you know what they say about pictures. It's worth 1,000 words. But then, if you heard things, it's like, nah, this is not happening. Really? Are you sure? So I say all of this to say, now that you have such access to information, that you have to be careful and use it even more wisely to make decisions. Now, these people could have engaged this gentleman quietly, try to make some sort of arrangement, try to explain to the gentleman what was taking place and why this was necessary. But no, they wanted this spectacle to be as public as possible. They didn't want this to be hidden because it was a public spectacle of ritualistic slaying. Okay? I want you to understand that. That is what it was. Now listen to me carefully. The attempt was to create a further divide, to solidify, to harmonize the followers of the NDC with the upper echelon of the NDC. It was in some respects that the upper echelons of the NDC was actually holding the hand, ritualistically, that is, holding the hand of its followers and saying to its followers, yes, we can do this together. Don't worry. We can do this together and we can be unapologetic. And it wasn't a physical holding of hands, but it was a holding of hands in a ritualistic sense. Because what you saw happening is that the followers of the NDC engaged themselves in the ritualism by going in the public domain and the public space and applauding the effort as if they were part of the whole action of the slaying. So psychologically, they engaged themselves in the ritualism. without they themselves even realizing what they're doing. It is confirming to the leadership that we are absolute followers. Okay? And we would support you regardless of what you do. So in some way, it was giving the leadership a sort of carte blanche. It was a cultic solidification of sorts. It's like we are in this together. And if we commit this ritual act together, this slaying, then it helps to bond us together. I know it is frightening to see it for what it is, but this is what it is. I know it is frightening to see it for what it is, but this is exactly what it is. It's a sacrificial ritual of bonding. Okay? I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. I'm going to show you a little clip. It is a bit graphic, so I'm going to cut out the graphic part, but it's for illustrative purposes. I want you to understand what I'm saying. You'll see a bonding of sorts between the African leader and the other guy who was a supplier. And there's a little clip, and I want you to take a look at this clip.
This man came here hoping to take your place. He killed your blood, your uncle, when he tried to kill you. You wanted I should let him go?
Right.
No, you don't want him dead. You just don't want to have to do it yourself. So, we will do this together. A bonding experience. You know you can stop this anytime that you want, but I don't think that you do. Just say the word. Stop.
So as you can see, this is very illustrative, okay? The gentleman felt slighted. He wanted this gentleman out of his way. He wanted to cause pain to this gentleman, but he didn't have the guts to do it by himself. So the African leader now, okay, said, look, we'll have this bonding experience, but you can stop me. Okay, you can stop me. We cannot do this together. You have the power to stop me. But if you notice, as I said, I cut out the graphic part. After the event or the act happened, then he said, oh, stop. So he really didn't want to stop. He wanted that ritual connection with this gentleman, because that, of course, would have harmonized their relationship. Again, this may be an extreme case, but it's for illustrative purposes. So I believe the whole act of putting on these horses was a sort of gratification, a psychological gift of sorts to the NDC followers. It's like, here it is. I know what you're feeling. Okay? So to satisfy their souls a little, to feel some sense of dominance over the ops, let me gift them this very ritualistic act. That's what it is. And then, now that they've committed the ritualistic act, they're forced, there's some sort of shared responsibility, a bond, okay? A slaying bond, so to speak. Because now they have to have each other's back against what they perceive as the opponent. We had an opportunity together, we satisfied ourselves together to cause some sort of grief, some sort of distress to our opponents. Some people say, oh, it's a little stretch, but I'm telling you it's not, because you should see the responses and the sort of jubilee in some respects and the sort of justifications of the followers of the NDC. So if you think that this was some sort of, oh, by the book law, or we needed to protect Grenadians, and that was the only justification for doing what they did, then boy, you must be naive, or you must be asleep. You need to be awakened. In diesem Sinne, guten Tag.